Hello everyone. Today, I want to talk about a case that brings together big questions about free speech, anonymity, and retaliation. It's the story of Hero Light Cody, an anonymous YouTube creator, and Zero Dark Tony, a more prominent figure on the platform. Before we dive into the details, let's talk about the concept of public figures. This idea is key to understanding why Hero Light Cody is legally protected. In legal terms, there are three main types of public figures. First, we have general public figures. These are individuals who are widely recognized in society, like celebrities or politicians. Their fame or status often invites public scrutiny. Second, we have limited-purpose public figures. These people may not be famous, but they've voluntarily stepped into public controversies or debates, seeking attention in a specific context. For example, a community leader advocating for a public policy might be a limited-purpose public figure. Finally, there are involuntary public figures. These are people who, through no action of their own, are thrust into the public eye. Think of someone involved in a high-profile crime or accident. They didn't ask for attention, but they receive it anyway. Now, why does this matter? It matters because public figures are treated differently under the law, especially when it comes to speech and defamation. Public figures are expected to tolerate more criticism and scrutiny. And to make a legal claim against their critics, they have to prove a much higher standard, something called actual malice. But what about people who stay out of the spotlight? People like Hero Light Cody. Let's take a closer look. Hero Light Cody is a small, anonymous YouTube creator with only about 800 subscribers. Cody exists solely to critique and expose wrongdoing by Zero Dark Tony. HLC doesn't seek fame or recognition for himself. He focuses entirely on holding ZDT accountable. In legal terms, HLC is clearly a private individual. He hasn't voluntarily stepped into the public eye or injected himself into a public controversy to attract attention. He is not creating content to build a brand. He's creating it to expose behavior he believes is harmful. This distinction matters because private individuals are afforded greater protection under the law. They are more vulnerable to harm from retaliation and intimidation, and they don't have the same access to platforms or resources to counter public attacks. In the Supreme Court case Gertz v. Robert Welch Incorporated, 1974, the court made it clear that private individuals are more deserving of legal protection because they are less prepared to handle the consequences of public scrutiny. This distinction is foundational to our understanding of free speech and accountability. Public figures, by their very nature, invite attention and critique. Private individuals, however, do not. This principle underscores why Hero Light Cody's anonymity and status as a private individual are so important in this case. He has not sought the limelight, rather, his critiques serve a public interest by exposing what he believes to be misconduct. Allowing retaliation against someone in his position undermines the very protections that free speech is meant to provide. The same reasoning applies to others, especially those who simply chat or comment their opinions online. Tony's assertion that someone like Peaceful Drama is a public figure, merely to justify retaliation or doxing, is not only legally unfounded. It is fundamentally at odds with the values of fairness and proportionality that should govern our public discourse. Private individuals engaging in commentary do not become public figures by default, and attempts to intimidate or harm them through doxing strike at the heart of their rights to both speech and privacy. Now let's look at Zero Dark Tony, or ZDT. With over 8,000 subscribers and a YouTube show that engages with a public audience, ZDT has voluntarily entered the public sphere. He's chosen to make his content and his persona a matter of public discussion. This makes him a limited-purpose public figure. ZDT's public presence invites critique and scrutiny, especially from those who take issue with his behavior. When you put yourself in front of an audience, you can't demand protection from accountability or criticism. Additionally, ZDT comments on protesters, particularly anti-Scientology protesters, which further supports his status as a limited-purpose public figure. By voluntarily and prominently participating in a public controversy, one as contentious as anti-Scientology protests, he aims to influence the public narrative surrounding these events. In doing so, ZDT has elevated his profile within this specific context, making him subject to greater scrutiny and critique within that sphere. Here's where the real issue lies. Retaliation. ZDT, based in California, has repeatedly threatened Hero Light Cody, including threatening to expose his identity. But it doesn't stop there. ZDT has also doxed other individuals who have merely participated in online discussions. This isn't just unethical. It's dangerous, and, in many cases, illegal. Doxing, or publicly sharing someone's private information without their consent, is a serious issue. It's not just an invasion of privacy. It's a deliberate attempt to expose someone to harm. In California, specific laws address this behavior. Under California Penal Code Section 653.2, the act of doxing, when combined with the intent to harass or intimidate, can be prosecuted as a form of cyber harassment. This law exists because the consequences of doxing can be devastating, leading to stalking, harassment, and even physical harm. Victims often have their addresses, phone numbers, and other personal details exposed, which can open the floodgates for targeted attacks. But ZDT hasn't stopped at doxing. His threats have escalated to something even more alarming. He has made direct threats of physical harm, including violent threats of torture and murder, against protesters and streamers who critique Scientology. These threats cross every ethical and legal line, transforming ZDT's actions to criminal behavior. One of ZDT's current targets is an anti-Scientology protester and streamer named Dan Walks LA, who regularly documents Scientology protests and shares information. Dan is a public advocate, using his platform to highlight an important social issue. However, ZDT has wrongly identified Dan as Hero Light Cody and is using this false assumption to threaten and intimidate him. This kind of targeted harassment is not just reckless, it's dangerous. Imagine the impact. Dan, as a Scientology streamer part-time, already faces risks for his advocacy. Now he's being subjected to baseless threats and harassment because of a false claim made by ZDT. This situation underscores the dangers of doxing and public retaliation, particularly when combined with threats of physical violence. ZDT is directly attacking the safety and freedom of individuals who are exercising their First Amendment rights. California law doesn't tolerate this kind of behavior, and it is critical that the LAPD enforce the law. Now, let's turn to the issue of anonymity and why it's so crucial for Hero Light Cody. For many of us, anonymity is not just a choice, it's a layer of protection. In a world where digital threats and harassment are common, maintaining anonymity allows individuals to engage in free speech without fearing retaliation. In this case, Hero Light Cody has used the anonymity of his platform to critique and expose what he believes to be misconduct by a public figure, ZDT. California courts have repeatedly upheld the right to anonymity, especially in cases involving public figures or matters of public concern. One of the most important cases in this area is McIntyre v. Ohio Elections Commission, 1995. In that case, the Supreme Court ruled that a state law prohibiting anonymous campaign literature violated the First Amendment. The court emphasized that anonymous speech is a protected form of expression, particularly when it's used to critique public figures or expose wrongdoing. This is a critical point. If you are engaging in anonymous online discourse, the principles from McIntyre support your right to remain anonymous, especially when your speech is aimed at holding public figures accountable. It is an extension of the First Amendment's protection of free speech, and it ensures that individuals can critique, expose, and report misconduct without fear of retribution. But while anonymity is a fundamental protection, it's not an absolute shield. If a public figure believes they have been defamed, they can still pursue legal action. The burden of proof falls on the public figure to show that they have been harmed by false statements. However, the public figure must also meet the higher legal standard of actual malice when pursuing a defamation case. This means the public figure must prove that the speaker either knew their statements were false or acted with reckless disregard for the truth. For Hero Light Cody, the legal standard of actual malice is crucial. This standard means that if ZDT, as a public figure, wants to succeed in a defamation claim, he must prove that Cody made statements about him knowing they were false, or with reckless disregard for their truth. But here's the important distinction: the right to anonymity doesn't shield someone from criticism if those statements are false. However, if the statements are truthful, they are protected under the law, regardless of whether the speaker is anonymous or not. Truth is an absolute defense to defamation. This means that Hero Light Cody, in speaking out against ZDT, does not need to fear legal retribution if he is simply telling the truth. The Constitution protects truthful speech, even when it's delivered anonymously. And in cases like this, where Cody is using his platform to expose perceived misconduct, the law is on his side. But the stakes here go far beyond legal definitions of defamation. What's at issue is retaliation, harassment, and the threats of physical harm that ZDT has been making. ZDT's actions don't just create a chilling effect on free speech, they create an environment of fear. Retaliation doesn't just discourage speech, it shuts it down. If people fear being doxed, harassed, or threatened with violence for expressing their opinions, they will stop speaking out altogether. California law, alongside the principles of free speech protected by the Constitution, simply doesn't allow that. No one should be forced into silence through intimidation or threats of harm. The very notion that ZDT can silence critics by threatening them undermines the values that U.S. society holds dear: accountability, free expression, and the ability to challenge public figures without fear of retribution. There's another crucial layer here. ZDT has violated a restraining order in California that prohibits him from discussing a minor or their family on his channels. This restraining order was granted after the minor fought back against ZDT, standing up for their own rights and winning the order. Under California law, restraining orders are enforceable under Penal Code Section 273.6, and violating one is a serious offense. When someone violates a restraining order, it can lead to significant legal consequences. This can include fines, jail time, and in some cases, felony charges. However, despite the clear legal directive, ZDT continues to violate the restraining order almost daily, and for months on end, with seemingly no consequences. Hero Light Cody's critiques of ZDT's behavior highlight this ongoing violation. Cody's content serves a broader public interest by exposing actions that could be not only harmful but illegal. This is exactly the kind of speech that the First Amendment is designed to protect, speech that holds individuals accountable, especially when those individuals are public figures. Meanwhile, ZDT's actions against public protesters like the minor, as well as other streamers, such as Dan Walks LA, raise critical questions about the standard for defamation. As we've discussed, limited-purpose public figures, such as Dan, who actively documents and critiques Scientology, are held to a higher standard when it comes to defamation. To win a defamation case, they must prove that the false claims against them were made with actual malice. That is, with knowledge of their falsity or with reckless disregard for the truth. Here's the critical point. ZDT's behavior goes beyond mere recklessness. By falsely identifying Dan as Hero Light Cody and using this incorrect assumption to threaten and intimidate him, ZDT is not just being careless. He is engaging in deliberate, targeted actions meant to harm. This is a pattern of behavior that would most likely meet the legal standard for actual malice under the law. These actions are harmful, false, and designed to intimidate. Clear indicators that ZDT's conduct could have serious legal consequences. ZDT may find himself facing significant legal repercussions. Let's wrap this up. Just like all of us, Hero Light Cody has the fundamental right to speak freely and anonymously, especially when exposing misconduct or holding public figures accountable. ZDT's threats and retaliation must not be allowed to silence our voices. If we allow for Tony to declare us all as public figures and dox us, there will be a chilling effect on any criticism toward his behavior. His behavior has likely had that effect already. It is essential that we, as a society, ensure our freedom of speech protections are upheld. Retaliation has no place in the First Amendment, and we must stand up for those who are threatened for speaking out. Thank you for watching. Stay informed, and remember, free speech is a right worth protecting for everyone. Until next time.